On April 29th, the EEOC released new guidelines that redefine what constitutes unlawful harassment in the workplace. This isn't just about refreshing old rules, it's about setting a new standard that addresses the evolving challenges employees and employers face today. From race-based harassment examples to the rights of transgender employees, these guidelines provide clarity and direction in areas that have been gray for far too long. So to start today, I have Sarah Piscatelli and Terry Cook. Hello.
Hi, Jillian.
So Sarah, can you tell me what is the EEOC's purpose in updating the harassment guidelines now after so many years?
Sure, Jillian. So the EEOC, and here we go with the acronyms, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, which is the federal equivalent of our MCAD, Mass Commission Against Discrimination. So that's the federal agency that enforces these laws against discrimination in the workplace. They occasionally, from time to time, they issue guidance, and it's been all over the place. In fact, they haven't done a consolidated, comprehensive harassment guidance since 1999. So 25 years. They're bringing it up to date. So one of the purposes really is to address changes in the law. For example, in 2020, the Supreme Court decided a case that extends sex discrimination to discrimination based on sexual orientation and transgender status. So the Supreme Court ruled in this Bostock versus Clayton that the discrimination based on sexual orientation or transgender status is sex discrimination because it's based on somebody's sex. So that sort of thing is addressed in here, as well as we have the relatively new statute, Pregnant Workers Fairness Act, the federal one, and the guidance addresses harassment based on reproductive choice under that, as well as pregnancy itself and everything else that's protected under the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. And there are many examples in the guidance it gives. It sets out almost 80 examples of real fact patterns from cases that have been decided, said this is the way we view this. Really helpful information. Again, guidance does not have the force of law. So these aren't regulations, but they are guidance for the public, from employers, sometimes even courts, but courts do not have to follow it to the letter.
All right, so it's bringing all this into one place, consolidating it all.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So how do the new guidelines expand the definition of harassment?
Again, the changes they've added in sexual orientations, transgender status as protected categories that just developed in the law over that time. It isn't new in this guidance. Other ways is they've taken a look at the more modern workforce. You know, there are examples that are set in virtual workplaces, for example. So it brings it current, takes a look at some old, some things that have been around for a while, but updates it. You know, generally updates the information that is in EEOC guidance.
So Terry, what are some of the key actions that employers should take immediately to comply with these guidelines and avoid liability?
Yeah, thanks, Jillian. So a few highlights in the guidelines, as Sarah mentioned. One is an anti-harassment policy. So in Massachusetts, we're really familiar that there is a pretty standard anti-harassment policy to be used. So here in the EEOC guidelines, again, talking about defining that policy, what's prohibited, making sure that this policy is accessible to everybody. And by accessibility, they're also pointing out specific barriers to comprehension. So it might be proficiency in English. It might be other items that literacy skills. It also has to include the supervisors that they can report the harassment to, and there should be multiple avenues. Again, we've been used to having multiple avenues, but the EEOC guidelines are really clear on that, and also talks about the process and make sure they're protected against anti-retaliation and confidentiality. And then moving into that complaint process, investigations, they're very clear in the guidance that they have to be prompt, they have to be effective, there has to be a corrective action in place. It has to have adequate confidentiality and anti-retaliation. So the investigation process itself needs to be handled rather quickly. And then the last piece identified is training. Again, not a lot of the previous guidelines have talked a lot about training, but this particular guideline goes into some more detail about how the training should happen. It should be regular. What should be included, information on the policy and the complaints, giving really good examples, making sure they're tailored to that workplace and workforce, making sure the supervisors and managers have specific information on how they need to take in complaints, how they have to stop it, how they have to report it, all of the risks associated. So really making sure it's clear and clear to understand, regularly occurring. So all of those pieces, and of course we can help with all three of those steps for people if they're interested. So we have a great investigation process. We'd certainly have policies, and we be happy to do both supervisor and general employee training.
Thank you, Terry. As a Massachusetts employer, is there anything I should be thinking about doing right away or considering, Sarah?
It's funny you asked that question, because we are still awaiting a similar guidance from the MCAD. They put out proposed guidance, I believe, in the fall, took some comments, and they will be issuing new guidance. So it really remains to be seen what they'll be, exactly how those updates will match what we're getting from the EEOC and the federal agency. Massachusetts might go beyond. It seems that, like, here's just one example, but under the federal guidance, there's some situations, an investigation has to be tailored to the facts and circumstances of the incident, of the complaint, right? And it also seems to discourage zero tolerance policies, because corrective action should also be more tailored. Massachusetts doesn't yet. I mean, the guidance as it stands right now really requires an investigation. So there, I think here in Massachusetts we can't say, oh, this isn't a matter that's so severe. The federal guidance allows you to sort of weigh, okay, the severity of the offense versus, the impact that an investigation is going to have on workplace culture, on the complainant, him or herself, right? But under Massachusetts law, an investigation must be conducted when you get a report of harassment. So that hasn't changed yet, but we'll see if the MCAD guidance, which is due out any day now, has some finer points on that. If there's anything different there. But for now, I'd say no, because the law that protects the employee more is the one that's going to govern, right? So in Massachusetts, tend to be more protective than the federal law, and there will be some differences.
All right, very good. Thank you, Sarah. Terry, is there anything else you want to add in relation to training, where people can find more information about our training?
Sure. Thanks, Jillian. Yeah, they can absolutely go to the website, www.aimhrsolutions.com. And also they can give us a call, any of us a call. Kelly McGinnis on our team is happy to help. I'm happy to take any questions or any comments that you have that you might have to get the training started. I'm happy to take those as well. So anything related to both training, and again, if you need help on investigations, learning a little bit more about that, we have some training for that, and certainly some policy implementation.
All right, and if anyone's looking for it, Kelly can be reached at 617-488-8321. All right, thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Terry.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Jillian.
Jillian.